A Collier County Circuit Court judge suspends a professional guardian for more than 30 cases after a clerk's auditor and a court monitor identify multiple concerns.
At best, this is mismanagement. At worst, it's something more.
Judge Elizabeth Cryer addresses professional guardian Kathy Johnson and her team of more than half a dozen lawyers at a hearing last week about how Johnson cared for 34 court-appointed wards and their money.
I also am not going to allow these wards' money to be flushed down the toilet another minute.
Johnson has been a professional guardian for more than 2 decades, even though she was convicted of DUI twice and declared bankruptcy, which often disqualifies a person from the role.
Numerous complaints were made about Kathy Johnson, and again, they were all unsubstantiated, and again, nothing was done until today. Too little, and God knows too late.
The clerk of courts, which monitors guardianships, found several irregularities in Johnson's cases, including claims which the auditor disputed that her wards lost $85,000 as a result of hacker activity, concerns that a ward's Mercedes-Benz didn't appear in an inventory, and accounting showing that a ward's account shrank by nearly $609,000 in 2 years. Johnson told auditors that records proving how money was spent were in storage. The judge gave her a week to deliver them.
All other records need to be turned over to the auditor's office. Every single piece of paper.
Judge Cryer also questioned whether some of the wards should be in guardianship at all.
I want a real capacity evaluation. I'm not convinced that anybody's seen anybody in terms of these capacity evaluations.
85-year-old Bridget Manning was visiting a friend in Florida when she fell, injured her leg, and wound up in a rehab center where she was declared incapacitated. Bridget wrote 7 letters to judges complaining about Johnson, begging to get her rights back and hoping to return to her native Ireland.
My intention was to get Johnson out. She did a lot of things to a lot of people.
Johnson moved Manning to a small home care facility in rural Lehigh Acres. That facility was recently cited by the state for its staff not having proper medical training and certification. What's it like living in this situation right here?
Bad.
Why is
Very
that?
bad. Well, I have to share a room, and it was Kathy Johnson got both of us in there.
This is the tiny room they share in the 1,400-square-foot home. How often would Kathy Johnson check on you here?
Well, because this is a very far place from her, she didn't like to come at all.
I was employed as a registered nurse. I was working 2 jobs.
Johnson was appointed guardian for Karen Federici in 2016 after Karen inherited money and her sisters in Ohio hired a lawyer to put her in guardianship when she was 56. A court-appointed committee conducted brief mental exams.
It was a retired hospice nurse meeting me at a McDonald's. And then the other 2 individuals that was to evaluate me was a retired 80-year-old OB-GYN and a activities director at a skilled nursing facility.
Federici secretly shot a video of a conversation with Johnson.
How come you're billing me hundreds of dollars for phone calls?
Because it's what I do, Karen.
It's what you do.
That's how guardianships work.
Karen lived alone at a La Quinta Inn, but didn't have access to her money.
When I needed food, I wasn't allowed to go to the store myself and buy it. She had to drive me so she could charge her $95 an hour.
With the help of friends she met on Facebook, Karen escaped guardianship and fled to California.
I literally lived on the lam for nearly a year using burner phones and cash.
A California lawyer hired by a supporter was able to get Karen's guardianship transferred to California, then overturned, but not before she lost everything she had before the process started.
I was living in a condo and I had a car.
And it's all gone.
All gone. All my photographs, my Bibles, furniture, my pets, everything gone.
Johnson was also the guardian of Rosalie Ziegler.
There was no caring for my mother.
Her daughter Carmen says she wasn't allowed to talk to her 98-year-old mom, and when her mother died, she was informed via text message.
They would not tell me at all where she was, and they said there was not going to be any funeral. They told me she was already cremated.
Carmen and others called around to funeral homes and were able to locate Ziegler's body. Carmen flew from North Carolina to say her final goodbye, finding her mother in a cardboard box.
It's heartbreaking because they treat them like they're non-people, like they're not important. The money is what is important.
Kathy, did you take
No
proper
comment.
care of people under your care?
No comment.
There are 30-some cases here. The judge had some real
Thank you, gentlemen, no comment.
concerns about your
Sir, I've already told you no comment.
Kathy Johnson, suspended from all her cases, left without saying a word, an envelope covering her face. A young man who lives in this group home was seriously injured more than a decade ago when he was doing a flip and landed on his head at a high school dance. He received a significant financial settlement and was placed in guardianship. But months ago, his guardian told his family that his money has run out and he could end up on the street.
What is your name?
Randy.
Wendy. I Wendy. I Wendy.
Hi, Randy.
Wilkins Vilson and his sister Fabiola show photojournalist Randy Wright his room at an assisted living facility. The now 34-year-old wears diapers and needs help dressing, bathing, and completing daily tasks.
He needs 24-hour care, an eye on him.
Photo collages on the wall show better days when Wilkins was a standout athlete at St. John Newman Catholic High School in Naples. Wilkins, his father, his brother, and 3 sisters moved from Haiti in the early 2000s and were granted temporary protected status, providing a pathway for citizenship. Do you remember playing football here?
Yeah. And one truck, play football, one cross country.
He went to states for the track 4x4. He was on the football team. He was on the soccer team.
Brian Ulrich, now a nurse in California, is Wilkins' former teammate.
You see him?
Yep.
It's Brian.
Brian is the only classmate Wilkins remembers after suffering a traumatic brain injury.
So it was our homecoming dance 2010. He was a senior.
He was just having a fun night, and out of nowhere, it changed his life.
But there was a flip at the dance that he had done, and he had over-rotated and landed on the back of his head.
Wilkins was rushed to the hospital where he spent weeks in intensive care and months in recovery.
Eventually, he's starting rehab in the hospital. He's can walk again. He can sit up in the chair. We threw a birthday party for him.
Wilkins was declared incapacitated, and Kathy Johnson was appointed as his professional guardian, overseeing his care and managing his money, including $614,000 from legal settlements related to the accident. Fabiola says Johnson rarely communicated and didn't call when he had COVID or was hospitalized for a seizure.
We don't know. We just go see Wilkins, and he's not there.
Brian had the same experience last Thanksgiving.
Oh, Wilkins was moved. We can't tell you where he's at because you're not the legal guardian.
Brian tracked down the guardian, and she told him Wilkins only had $4,000 left.
It's kind of barely going to get us through December. We really need to figure something out, because he can't stay in the house anymore. We're going to get evicted.
So she told me his money runs out, that, if he has nowhere to go, he's just going to end up in the street.
Are we looking at going back to Haiti in a time where we've got massive issues going on with gang warfare and all this stuff?
In August 2022, more than a decade into the guardianship, Johnson asked the court to move Wilkins' remaining $158,900 into a pooled trust, telling the judge that would enable her to try to qualify him for government benefits. But that never happened. 16 months later, Johnson petitioned the court to resign, saying Wilkins no longer had any money, and she feared she would be held liable for his expenses.
At best, this is mismanagement. At worst, it's something more.
In late February, Judge Elizabeth Cryer, who appointed Johnson, removed her from all her Collier County cases, following a scathing audit alleging missing money, lost records, and hacked bank accounts. There are 30-some cases here. The judge had some real...
Thank you, gentlemen, no comment.
The judge had some real concerns about your
Sir, I've already told you no comment.
Records show Johnson billed Wilkins $48,000 over the course of his guardianship, including a bill for $500 the month before she told his sister he was running out of money. Currently, there is no money to pay for Wilkins' care.
It's almost $4,000 just to stay here
A month?
a month, just the place.
An emergency temporary guardian is contacting state and federal authorities, trying to get Wilkins a green card so he could qualify for health insurance and other benefits. But they say Johnson took his birth certificate and other documents and never gave them back.
We've talked to any lawyers we can who deal with citizenship. We talk to lawyers that deal with setting up trust funds for us to maybe get some money into a fund for him. That way that can be managed in a way that we can see.
Let's say hi to the camera, Wilkins.
Wilkins, thankfully, doesn't understand what's going on. But his friends and family see a broken system that failed to protect one of the most vulnerable people in its care. We contacted Kathy Johnson and her attorney for this story, but we have not heard back. The most recent court filing in Wilkins' case indicates the Department of Children and Families is investigating. A St. Petersburg woman says that she and her late husband carefully planned out who would take care of them and where their money would go. But she says that plan was completely thrown out under Florida's guardianship system.
Adam, this is Marie Lang in St. Petersburg.
A troubling call that came from this St. Petersburg senior care facility went to voicemail.
I need some help fast, please. I don't know what to do and things are getting worse and worse. I just don't know what to do anymore.
88-year-old Marie Lang tracked me down and made multiple calls to my unlisted number despite being declared incapacitated 6 years ago. We met her outside her facility. Why'd you call me?
I'm not going to live that much longer, and I don't want to live like this. I think I should be free to do what I want, go where I want, and who what I want.
Lang lost most of her rights and was appointed a professional guardian in 2018.
And it's terrible that I can't go out with my son and I have to ask permission. That's not right. He's my family. He's the only one I have here.
Kurt Lang cared for his mother after her husband died in 2006. He's one of 5 children, but the only one in Florida. His sister Kim in Michigan says Kurt has been devoted to his mom.
What was his role in her life?
Basically to help her pay bills, to, take her to appointments, to, go walk the dog.
I would have to hire 3 or 4 people to do that, and he did everything.
Kurt began managing Marie's trust in 2012 after she had a stroke. Marie designated him as her pre-need guardian and power of attorney in 2016. The next year, Kurt petitioned for guardianship, alleging his out-of-state brothers attempted to unduly influence her by repeatedly asking Marie for money.
They just wanted everything right away.
Kurt's brothers filed a counter-petition accusing Kurt of tricking his mother into deeding her condo to Kurt and calling for a professional guardian, which a judge approved.
They didn't want him around me because they thought he was influencing me, but he doesn't. He's just doing what his father told him to do.
The 2006 trust said, "Our real estate in Florida shall pass to our son Kurt W. Lang outright."
I was on the deed for my mom's condo, all right, and they were jealous of that.
Marie's guardian sued Kurt months later over the deed transfer and allegations that Kurt diverted $1.5 million from her accounts.
It's all false. It's a jealousy that Kurt was there.
Kurt says the money was used to pay his mother's bills, and his attorney responded that Marie had knowledge of and consented to those transactions. Your guardian used your money to sue Kurt.
I even had to pay her lawyers to do it.
Kurt says mounting legal bills forced him to settle.
In order for them to stop the lawsuit, I had to sign off on the condo, and she sold it.
The condo sold for $565,000, and Kurt received $150,000 in the settlement. Kurt later learned his mother's individual retirement account, worth $1 million, was mysteriously moved to another state, and the beneficiary had been changed.
It's up in Connecticut. I said, "What's it doing up there?" That's where my son lives. She said,
And he wasn't named a beneficiary originally?
Oh, no, none of them were, only Kurt.
I'm very curious to know why I was taken off as a beneficiary on an account.
And this was after the doctors had determined that your mother was incapacitated?
Yes. Yeah.
Kurt sued his brothers in 2022, claiming they conspired to deceive, coerce, exert undue influence, or otherwise fraudulently convince Marie Lang to remove Kurt as sole beneficiary and substitute the defendants. A judge dismissed the lawsuit, saying the claims can't be brought until Marie's death.
No, I didn't sign anything.
Did the judge ever ask you if you could tell her whether you signed this beneficiary designation?
I never talked to a judge.
Kurt's attorney appealed and is asking for Marie to be deposed.
Don't we all want to know what went on February 18th, 2018, when that all of a sudden the beneficiaries were changed from my client singularly to the three defendants?
Lang and her daughter Kim filed complaints with state and local agencies, complaining Marie's money is wasted on private nurses they say aren't needed at her full care facility.
They told me that they had to write down anybody that came, who they were, how long they stayed, and what we talked about.
Judge Pamela Campbell appointed a court monitor who found no wrongdoing. In an order, Campbell wrote, the court has repeatedly warned the family not to discuss their drama and negative suspicions with their mother. Campbell warned these visits and telephone calls may need to truly be monitored or restricted. Have you told your guardian that you don't like the way things are going?
Yes.
What does she say?
Nothing. That's just the way it is.
I'm I-Team investigator Adam Walser. The millionaire who lived in this Polk County waterfront home spent more than $100,000 on estate planning, but then he was diagnosed with dementia and ended up in guardianship, and all his wishes were disregarded. Now his family is speaking out, advocating a new law that they hope will prevent the same thing from happening to other families. Donald Pete Beatty was a simple man who lived an extraordinary life.
He was such a millionaire and so successful.
Pete's empire included a rock quarry, a cattle ranch, and an orange grove. He bought and sold thousands of acres, making millions and inspiring his stepson Ray along the way.
Pete taught me that a man with a third-grade education can accomplish anything in this country.
Pete also won $17.5 million in the Florida lottery in 1990. But 2 years later, his first marriage ended, and his winnings went to his wife and children in the divorce settlement. In 2002, Pete married his second wife and longtime business manager Doris, whose son Ray was from a previous marriage.
My life was dedicated to Pete. 24/7 was Pete and the businesses.
But Doris and Pete divorced in 2007. Doris kept the couple's lakefront home, but Pete moved back in months later and lived with her there for the next 12 years, even though they never remarried. In 2016, Pete signed legal documents appointing Doris to manage his affairs if he was no longer able to.
I was to be trustee, guardian, and healthcare surrogate.
He hired a lawyer, he had notaries, he had witnesses. He did everything years ago.
Pete gave $100,000 a year to the Mayo Clinic and donated money to build a surgical wing at a Plant City hospital. In his trust agreement, he planned to share his wealth.
You know, if a man wants to leave 40% of his trust like Pete did to give away to people, that's his right. And my mom was going to help spread that 40% amongst various causes.
Pete's trust said his son shall not receive any property or serve as trustees for any reason or under any circumstance. In 2019, Pete showed signs of dementia. When Doris tried to stop him from driving, a confused Pete pulled a gun on her. She called police.
Pete was arrested. Then I got him out of jail, and then I hired sitters to help me to take care of Pete.
Doris petitioned to be his guardian, but his sons filed a counter-petition seeking guardianship, describing Doris as Pete's ex-spouse. A judge removed all Pete's rights and appointed a professional guardian to oversee his vast estate.
Pete was removed from the home and isolated, neglected, abandoned.
The guardian restricted Doris's visitation and bought another house with Pete's money, hiring round-the-clock caregivers. She was paid more than $100,000 from his funds in just 5 months.
He cried like a baby every time he talked to me because he couldn't take it.
The guardian's attorney and Pete's sons alleged Pete's trust agreement was invalid, saying he was incapacitated when he signed it.
It was decided that we would have a mediation to see if we reach an agreement.
Doris eventually signed a new agreement giving up most of her financial interest in exchange for more visitation.
They're using the visitation as a way of coercing you to sign away everything.
I signed it. They put a restraining order on me a few months after, and I couldn't visit Pete anymore.
In the restraining order, the guardian and caregivers described Doris as threatening and toxic and said she was responsible for upsetting Pete when she visited. Doris said the guardian took away Pete's cell phone, but somehow he managed to call her one last time. She says at that time Pete thought she had abandoned him.
Hey, Doris, it wouldn't hurt you to give me a call. You know, I'm here by myself, and it's lonesome.
I complained to the DCF, I complained to the FBI, I complained to the sheriff, to the local police, and nothing happened.
Pete died about a year into the guardianship.
Because you never saw this man again who you loved.
No, I couldn't even go to his funeral. They didn't allow me to go to his funeral.
Hearing what some people have gone through, it really opened my eyes that, we need to start somewhere. We need to start doing something.
Florida Representative Rita Harris is sponsoring House Bill 887, which would prevent guardians from denying visitation to families unless they can show clear and convincing evidence that contact is not in the ward's best interest. It would also allow juries to be used in guardianship cases for the first time to determine the validity of legal agreements.
They're an objective body of 6. They got no skin in the game.
I saw these people doing things that nobody can imagine they could be able to do it. And nothing happened. The judge was right there watching everything.
Doris and Ray plan to travel to Tallahassee to support the bill. Representative Harris hopes to get it past the finish line.
Do you expect, some pushback from the Florida bar?
I believe so. I mean, they are used to the way things have been running.
I'm My Team investigator Adam Walser with photojournalist Randy Wright taking action for you.